from my perspective, when he first comes into the bank, I actually wasn't taking any clients yet. And so I was counting money when he was in the line. So as you know, in the bank, you kind of have to count your money throughout the day just to make sure that everything is where it needs to be. And I literally, so I was down on the floor, I was counting, so you couldn't see me yet. So when you saw me, you couldn't see me yet. And I felt something telling me to stand up and just look.
Stand up! Did it sound like a ludicrous voice? Like, stand up!
No. It was just kind of like an instinctual thing.
You sure it wasn't ludicrous?
You know, it was not ludicrous.
Somebody wasn't playing? Like,
no.
Okay.
But I just kind of sensed the sense, you know, it's just kind of like a sense to just kind of look, get up and look. And so I stand up to just look like, just instinctually, like, what is that? And there he is the sun was shining on his head. It was like a halo.
You know, I talked about this halo that people see.
You know, so that I've seen it. So that I've seen it.
I don't know what that is. So I never seen the halo.
I've seen it. I've seen the halo. It was like,
that is wild.
You know?
I don't know nothing about that.
And so I waited a bit until he came down because I had my part closed. So I waited till you came down and then I moved it. I was like, next. And then, you know, that same thing, I'm like, oh, I'm behind here. How do I get him to notice me? That's what I was thinking. How do I get to notice me?
It's too late. I already noticed you.
So, but how do I get you to know that I'm interested? That was the part. Like,
gotcha. Yeah.
You know,
and you know what? That's a funny thing that you say that, because I think a lot of people often struggle with understanding that that's part of it too. Like, if you're wanting to be married, you got to kind of know how to be noticed. And I'm not saying
throw the vibes out.
Yeah, throw the vibes out. Yeah, I'm not saying
the inappropriate vibes.
Right. Yeah. Don't be. Come on. I'm not talking about vibes. You're gonna catch what you put out. Okay. So you put out too much, you're gonna catch the wrong thing. You'll get too much back. But sometimes I think women don't realize there's an exchange that kind of happened that men are looking for. A man wants to feel that he'll be received. You know. And so, not to take God out of the picture, because I think God kind of supersedes all that. But
I feel like it was God that was giving me advice at that moment. Like, looking back,
And what did he tell you? What did he tell you?
So
hold on, was it God or was it ludicrous?
No, it was not ludicrous. It was God. I think looking back now, because then I wasn't a believer, but looking back, I'm like, I felt like God. Like,
okay,
I could recognize it as
I
God.
can rock with that.
So I was thinking, like, well, how do I get him to know that I'm interested? Because I'm behind the glass. And so I felt the same thing that kind of instinctually told me to stand up.
Stand up!
If you don't stop.
When I move you.
And so that same kind of sensing is not I'm not hearing audible voice, but it's just like a feeling. So it's just kind of like, just stare him in the eyes and smile. Just look him intently in the eyes and just smile. And I'm like, okay. And so that's what I did. I was just like, hi, how? I just looked at him and just kept smiling, and that's all I did.
And I
did it work?
And I felt like she was gonna receive me, because like I said, at that time I had stopped, you know, because prior to that season of my life, I mean, I was out there, I was chasing anything in a skirt, and
you. It's okay.
Just that much. She didn't never wear skirts, so
I don't wear skirts.
God really reshaped. I was going through a process where He was reshaping how I saw women, how I saw relationships, how I saw the pursuit. And so I had stopped. You know, if I would see somebody, I wasn't gonna do anything. So you were like the first person, like, you know, the new me that got the new me.
Okay.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit.
We did.
And then there was another day when.
Okay, so I'm because you skipped some things.
All right, go ahead. You gotta fill in the gap.
So then he left, and that was it, right? Until that evening, and so I'm going home. I'm on the train. The same day that I just met him. And I'm kind of like daydreaming about him. I'm like, oh, he was cute. And, you know, I'm kind of like, you know, just thinking. And so I get off at my stop. The train door opens. And this man is standing right in my face.
Was the halo there this time?
No.
I lost my halo.
But I was shocked, right? And so I think I got a little deflated because I was just so shocked. I was like, hi.
And I didn't recognize her.
And he did not recognize
she wasn't at the bank no more. So I'm like,
out of context.
I've seen her somewhere before. And so I said, where do I know you from?
So I felt a little like, I thought we had a moment.
But we had the moment, but we hadn't met. Like officially.
We were just like, hi.
So I'm thrown away because I've probably seen you before. at the bank prior to that, I'm sure, because that was the only bank that I banked at. And for those of you who live in New York City, it was right on 125th and 8th Avenue.
Yes.
When North Fork was there, yeah.
You should go take a picture there.
Selfie.
But the door opens and he's standing there and I'm like, oh my God, because I'm thinking about him, I'm daydreaming about him on the train and he doesn't recognize
There I
me.
is.
But it's like, I got a little deflated because I'm like, he didn't recognize me, you know, but not realizing I'm just out of context.
Yeah.
And you're like, where do I know you from? I'm like, the bank.
Listen, if I see me and I'm not on this video, I don't recognize me either. This is the way I know myself. I'm totally joking.
So I'm like, the bank, and you're like, oh, and you then I felt like,
And I was like, oh man.
you get that look of interest.
Well, and that's the other
like,
thing too.
huh.
But that's a good point that you make. Because remember I said I never saw the rest of you.
You did. So you had a glimpse.
That was the first time I saw all of you.
He's like,
and so I was like, who is this? You know? But no, seriously, if I can know somebody well,
No, I know.
and they throw in a hat, you see it all the time.
Yeah.
I'd be like,
Where do I know you?
yeah, where are you
He's his
from?
own kid. Anyway. So we laughed, and in that moment, I'm like, okay, like you gave the look of interest, you know? And so I went home and I told my mom, I met my husband. And she remembers to this day.
Crazy to me.
She remembers to this day. I was so excited. I was like, I think I met my husband.
You were
and
right.
she's like, really? And I just told her, it was nothing even big happened, but it was
right.
just those moments of.
You was right.
You sensed it. Like, this is my husband.
You know, had you ever felt like that before with anybody else?
Never.
Yeah.
That was like the first time that.
Yeah.
Like, if he was like, I never believed in love at first sight. So I wouldn't say it was love at first sight, but it was just that moment of, this is
the one.
This is it. There's no more looking.
And like I said, I had stopped looking too. Well, I hadn't stopped completely looking, but I had stopped pursuing.
Yeah.
And so in my head, I'm thinking like, wow, this is it, you know? And so we kind of go on from there. So that's the meeting.
Yes.
And
so then you came the next day. So what you said.
Was that the next day?
It was the next day.
Oh man, dang. I don't remember the timeline, but that's good.
You came the next day.
You got
but
your head on your shoulder,
Yeah.
woman.
You didn't ask me for my number yet.
Okay.
You didn't ask me for my number yet. Because I think the next day, was either Halloween or sometime around that week.
Yeah. There was a day where I went in there on Halloween.
Yeah. So the day he goes in on Halloween, I guess that's the day.
Yeah, that was the day.
Yeah.
That was the day where I got your number.
Yes.
I got them digits.
So on Halloween, he comes in and he's like the very last. We were the last client.
It was about to close.
And I'm like,
and I was rushing to the bank. I was like, I gotta get there.
I guess that's the check you were looking for, just hoping it was there.
Well, no, I already had the check, but I had other things to do in the day,
Okay.
so I had to come back later to do it.
So if anybody works in any kind of customer service where you shut down at a certain time, you're annoyed with that last customer that comes in at the very last moment. So they're about to,
I technically wasn't the last customer.
right,
I skipped back in the line.
but you're like, you're coming in, so we're about to lock the door to let other people. So you came in, I'm like, oh, he's here. And so we talked for a bit, and I don't know how to drum up conversation, so Halloween was the only thing I could think of. And I was like, hey, are you trick-or-treating tonight?
And I was like, no, I don't celebrate Halloween.
And I was like,
No, I don't celebrate.
He was like, I don't celebrate Halloween. And I'm like, me either.
Yeah. And in that moment, that was the first moment I was like, oh, this might be the one. Because for me, that was a big thing at the time. Being a Christian,
That's how you recognize other Christians.
Yeah, it's kind of like, not that.
Yeah.
I know some Christians celebrate Halloween, some people don't. That's whatever you do, follow your own convictions. My personal conviction was not to follow Halloween. And so to find somebody who was kind of thinking like that, I'm like, she must be a Christian. She's laughing because she wasn't.
I wasn't. There's a reason. There was a reason. But so we have that exchange. It's like, oh, me either. And then I asked him, I said, anything else you need?
Yeah.
And then I would just look like, anything else you need?
I'm like, wow.
And he's like, well, and then he slides a note back. And I had to be a little cautious, like, oh man, okay, so he's sliding a note. Because at the bank, you just don't let people slide your notes. So I'm like,
her hands on the button, like.
did I get trapped? But on the note, he asked me for my number, and
You just gave it to
and we gave it to him.
and 12 years later, hey, I wish it was that easy.
I wish it was that easy.
So that was like phase one,
Yes.
the meeting. Well, no,